At some point, you're going to see Christopher go over to that treadmill and speed it up. And you're going to see Corey fall. And you're going to see him pick that boy up 6 times. And 6 times put him back on the treadmill. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to like him. And I don't care if you like him. When you see that video, you're going to be horrified. You're going to be mortified. But I'm telling you right now that the evidence you're going to see of Corey's death had absolutely nothing to do with that treadmill.
That was defense attorney Mario Gallucci in his opening statement talking about his client, Christopher Gregor. And he mentioned that you will be mortified when you see that video. He's right. A lot of people were mortified to see Gregor, who was accused of abusing his 6-year-old son, and that abuse led to his death. That's the treadmill video that Gallucci was just discussing. Gregor's son, Corey Micciolo, died on April 2nd, 2021. It's 2 weeks after this video from March 20th of the same year. And since that opening statement, the state and the defense both called their own forensic pathologist to give their expert analysis on Corey's death. Now, on the left, you see there is Dr. Andrew Thomas. His opinion for the state was that Corey died of blunt force trauma as a result of abuse at the hands of Christopher Gregor. On the right is defense witness and legendary Dr. Michael Baden. He stated that he believed Corey died of rapid and severe pneumonia and that the blunt force trauma injuries were actually the result of vigorous CPR after this little boy was taken to the hospital. So the jury today heard both sides' closing arguments. Let's take a look back at some of the biggest moments now.
On April 2nd, 2021, the world lost a shining light in Corey Micciolo, a 6, almost 7-year-old boy who died. That is tragic. No child, no matter what age, should die. But he didn't do it. He did not kill Corey. This is not the first time that child was on a treadmill. That child knew exactly how to work a treadmill and knew exactly what to do. And then we see what we saw. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I'm sure you didn't like it. I don't really care if you liked it or not. And I don't care if you liked him or not. Because it doesn't really matter. Because every single expert said, even their experts said, that treadmill had absolutely nothing to do with his death 12 days later. He visits Brianna on the 23rd, 3 days later. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't call DCP&P that day. She doesn't alert anybody to the fact that my Corey is hurt. This is her visitation day, the 23rd. 3 days after treadmill. And I'm going to get to this. But, oh, the bruises were different ages. I'll get there. 3 days later, she has him. Not an issue. This is an absolute tragedy. There is no words for the death of a 6-year-old child. When we met you, when we picked you, we told you the type of case it was. We told you what you were going to see here. We explained to you what this was going to be, and you promised all of us that you would take the emotion, set it aside, and that's going to be hard. He's 6 years old. It's going to be hard. But you have to. And you were chosen because we all believed you would be able to do exactly that.
This case is about punishment. On March 20th of 2021, Corey's mother brought Corey home 2 hours late. Corey was punished. He was put on a treadmill. We have a video of this treadmill. On April 2nd of 2021, Corey was brought home 14 hours late. Corey was punished. The person who loved him the most inflicted blunt force trauma, which is child abuse. His heart was lacerated. His liver was lacerated. This case is about punishment. He was murdered by his father, the person who was supposed to protect him and take care of him the most. There's no question what he did to Corey on April 2nd. His final act of child abuse. This case is about Corey. This case is about Corey and how he became the ultimate victim of the defendant's punishment and abuse. 6-year-olds just don't die, and neither did Corey.
So after those lengthy closing arguments, the jury elected to go home for the day. So they will come back tomorrow to start their deliberations. Let's talk about it with the think tank. Still with us in studio, criminal defense attorney and entertainment lawyer Daryl Cohen, Professor Molly Palmer, and defense attorney Josh Schiffer with us. Daryl, I mean, we were reacting so much to what we were seeing in those closing arguments, but let's talk about the battle of the experts, because that's a big deal in this case. We've got two experts, one for the state saying this was blunt force trauma, the other saying this was pneumonia, but the actual medical examiner who did the autopsy didn't make an appearance.
So I like the best of the best as an expert, but juries tend to listen to both experts, and sometimes they just discard both of them because they expect the defense to have their expert, they expect the prosecution to have their expert. They, in my view, if they convict, they're going to be looking at this defendant and exactly what his facial expressions were as he looked mean, in my view, whether or not they can reconcile this man sitting in front of them, well-dressed, with what he did to that child, and they just may decide that he's guilty because of the way he abused his child on video.
And Molly, your thoughts on that, because you mentioned they may be able to convict on abuse, but do you think they will get to the point of murder?
I think one of, you know, this case is so tough to watch because of that video. That video on the treadmill is just awful, and that forms the basis of the aggravated child abuse charge. Now, with the murder charge, we have the battle of the experts. We don't quite know how the jury is going to interpret the testimony of both. But I think the fact that the state did not come forward and say, look, the medical examiner is not going to testify. The medical examiner who found that this was not a murder.
Undetermined.
But it was an undetermined cause of death. I think that that does create something for the defense to use, as we saw them do in closing, that's somewhat powerful. Now, ultimately, is the video of the treadmill enough for the jury to say, you know what, and I believe this man murdered this child as well? Or is the jury going to feel compelled by both sides and both of the expert presentations enough to say, you know what, I don't quite get that medical expert piece, and so let's acquit, let's basically split the baby. Let's acquit on the murder, let's convict on the aggravated child abuse, and we can all agree with something like that.
Because the prosecutor prosecution could have owned it, Josh. We saw that in the Chad Daybell trial. Tammy Daybell, her first, there was no autopsy, but the determination was that she died naturally, so they had to own that in the trial. George Floyd's death as well. It wasn't asphyxiation, according to the first and original medical examiner.
And you'll see top practitioners own the bad facts, whether it's for the state or the defense. If you let the other side introduce the bad fact, it's going to get held against you and your side. You've got to have the guts to go out there and eat the stuff that you don't want presented up front to the jury. You've got to acknowledge it. Hiding it, that's just going to make questions form in the jury's mind. Why aren't they saying who's that, where? That's the big issue with this state ME. I'm going to get a lot of grief for this because this crime is horrific looking, but I believe he walks on the top count. I believe that there was a very successful questions asked by putting forward two very well-trained, one extraordinarily famous expert over the cause and manner of death, because there's questions due to what Molly brought up. We don't have that perfect state's witness who's the person we should be hearing from. Instead, we've got these two highly paid, biased experts that did bring up some pretty good questions. When juries have questions, that's not beyond a reasonable doubt.
Now, there was a moment inside of the courtroom that I want to highlight during the defense closing argument where they pointed the finger not only at the pneumonia, but there were also a lot of mentions by Mario Gallucci of Brianna Micciolo, the mother of this child. And there was a point where she just couldn't take it anymore. She kind of whispered to the person next to her that she can't take this guy, and she left. She walked out of the courtroom, and about 11 minutes later, she did return, but over and over, that's what the defense attorney was pointing the finger at, that she was so desperate to get custody that she was making up these abuse claims. But we heard from her during this trial, and she described some of her interactions with the father of her child.
Calling your attention to April 2nd of 2021 at approximately 3:30 p.m., did you have a phone conversation with the defendant in regard to your son, Corey?
Yes.
And can you tell the court what the defendant said in that phone conversation?
He told me Corey wasn't feeling good. That he was lethargic and he was throwing up and his legs hurt. He was just sick. And he asked me for Corey's insurance card and to send it to him.
And did the defendant tell you where he was taking Corey?
He said he was going to the hospital. He was taking Corey to the hospital.
And did he tell you which hospital he was going to take Corey to?
No.
The jury in that case, they start deliberating tomorrow morning at 9.